This one goes back to when I was a kid, and it's not something I talk about much, honestly. It's not even something I think about very often. Whenever I do, it leaves me with this uncomfortable, almost sick feeling deep inside, the kind that's hard to explain. Maybe writing it down will help me release it somehow, or maybe it won't. I honestly don't know. I went to a boarding school out in the suburbs, starting in 8th grade, and I ended up staying there through most of high school. I shared a room with a kid named Weston. At first, we weren't close at all. We were just two kids thrown together like everyone else. Over time, though, we got used to each other's presence. The room itself was basic: 2 beds, 2 desks, and a tiny shared closet. After a few weeks, I started noticing some strange things about Weston. One day, completely out of the blue, he handed me a folded piece of paper. It was a list of items I apparently wasn't allowed to bring back to the room. He acted like this was totally normal, like it was some unspoken roommate rule everyone followed. That alone was strange, but the list itself was even stranger. It was filled with random things that made absolutely no sense. I don't remember everything on it, but one item stood out immediately: frogs. As if I had ever planned on bringing frogs into our dorm room. I didn't even know where someone would find a frog, let alone why they'd bring one inside. But the strangest item on the list by far was salt. You don't eat salt by itself, so I couldn't imagine why he'd feel the need to mention it. What did he think, that I was just going to walk around with a salt shaker for no reason? It was absurd, especially since bringing food back to the dorms was already frowned upon. And beyond that, what kind of problem could salt even cause? As far as I knew, salt allergies weren't a thing. I had no idea what he was trying to avoid. What really unsettled me was how serious he was about it. You might think it was some kind of joke, but I promise you, this kid did not understand humor. He also had a habit of muttering to himself, not casually, but full-on whispering under his breath, especially at night when the lights were off. Sometimes I'd catch bits of it, like he was talking to someone else in the room, but there was never anyone there. It freaked me out at first, especially when he accidentally woke me up doing it, but like everything else, I eventually got used to it. He also kept a small notebook. At first, I assumed it was something personal or embarrassing because he never let anyone see it. I later found out he kept it hidden under his mattress. Over time, my curiosity grew until it finally got the better of me. One day, when he was out of the room, I reached under his mattress and found it. Most of the pages were blank, but a few had writing. It only took a couple of seconds to realize what I was looking at: a long list of names, many of them scratched out. As I read through the pages, I recognized several names. They were kids I knew from school. Panic set in as I scanned the pages, desperately searching for my own name, and when I found it, I felt sick. It was written near the back and hadn't been crossed out. I didn't know what that meant, but it terrified me. There was nothing else in the notebook, just names, most of them uncrossed. Normally, I might have brushed it off as a list of people he didn't like, but the way Weston guarded that notebook made it feel far more serious. Seeing that list gave me this overwhelming sense that Weston was more than just socially awkward. For weeks after that, I was paranoid that he somehow knew what I had done. I worried constantly that he was going to do something to me. I barely spent time in the room anymore, choosing instead to stay with friends. Then one night, something happened that made all my fear feel completely justified. I woke up in the middle of the night. It was pitch black, and at first, I thought Weston was muttering again. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized something far worse. Weston wasn't in his bed. He was standing over me, in the dark, smiling. His hands were raised slightly, like he'd been frozen mid-action. I screamed and sat up, but he didn't flinch. He didn't even stop smiling. When I demanded to know what he was doing, he calmly said I'd been talking in my sleep, as if that somehow explained why he was standing over me at 2 in the morning. He went to bed without another word. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I tried to talk to him about it, but he acted genuinely confused, like he had no idea what I was talking about. I couldn't tell if he was lying or if he truly didn't remember, and I didn't know which was worse. About a week later, I came back to the room and found a live garden snake on my bed. Weston claimed it was a harmless prank. When I asked where he got it, he said something I'll never forget: "They're everywhere." What scared me most was watching the snake willingly slither into a jar on his desk. I didn't report it. I was 13. I didn't know how to handle it. A few nights later, I had what I thought was a nightmare: sleep paralysis, a dark pulsing mass on the ceiling, a claw scratching my bed frame. It smashed through the room and burst out the window. When I woke up, the window was shattered. Glass was still falling. The scratches were real. Weston was asleep. When he finally woke up, he accused me of going through his things and started hissing and yelling in a foreign language. The RA escorted us out. I slept in a vacant room, only to wake up freezing, its window wide open. Weston was gone the next morning. I never saw him again. Something abnormal happened that night, and it still terrifies me. When I was little, my parents used to send me to my grandparents' farm in Pennsylvania for 2 weeks every summer. The house sat on about 40 acres, most of it dense woods. Honestly, it felt like more forest than farmland. My cousin Francisco would visit during different weeks because our parents wanted to give my grandparents a break between visits. I always came during the first 2 weeks of July, and he always came during the last 2 weeks of August. The house had 3 floors, but the third floor was really just an attic with one finished room. That room used to belong to my dad when he was my age, and that's where I slept. The ceiling slanted down on both sides, and there was a single window that overlooked the backyard and the woods beyond it. My grandparents went to bed early, usually before 9. My parents told me it was rude to stay up past them, so once they wished me goodnight, I stayed in my room. I didn't actually sleep, though. I'd read with a flashlight or play my Game Boy. There wasn't much else to do out there. The first summer passed without incident, but things started getting strange during the second summer. One of the first nights, I was reading in bed when I heard footsteps on the attic stairs. They were soft, like whoever it was trying not to be heard. I watched as the door handle slowly turned, and the door opened about 6 inches. The moment I saw that, I shut off my light and pretended to be asleep. I genuinely thought it was my grandma checking on me, and I didn't want to get in trouble for being awake. But after that, I didn't hear anything. No footsteps going back down the stairs. No sound of the door closing. Eventually, I forced myself to sleep, assuming either I missed her leaving or she was standing there watching me for some reason. The next morning, I told my grandpa about the footsteps. He said the house was old and made noises, and that raccoons sometimes got into the walls. That explanation struck me as odd, because I was pretty sure I'd seen the door handle turn. Still, I didn't argue. I figured maybe my grandma had come up and he just didn't know about it. 3 nights later, I woke up. Or at least I thought I did, because my bed was shaking. There was someone standing at the foot of it. It was dark, but I could see the outline of a person. I couldn't tell which of my grandparents it was, but it scared me anyway. I closed my eyes and silently counted to 100. When I opened them again, the figure was gone. I convinced myself it had been a nightmare, but it didn't feel like one. The next morning, I noticed my closet door was open, even though I knew I'd closed it before going to sleep. That made me question whether I'd actually been dreaming at all. As strange as it sounds, I started suspecting my grandma was checking on me while I slept. Elderly people don't always have the best control over their minds, and it was the only explanation that made sense to me at the time. It was unsettling, but I didn't want to bring it up again out of fear of being disrespectful or upsetting them. Similar things kept happening over the course of that week and the next. And when it was finally time to go home, I was relieved. When my mom picked me up, I told her everything. The footsteps, the figure, the open closet door. She laughed and said it was impossible to get my grandma out of bed once she fell asleep. She told me I had an active imagination and that old houses were creepy. She also said Francisco never complained about anything when he stayed there. That made me feel like maybe I really had just imagined it. But when I went back the next summer, the same things happened again. I never actually saw my grandma's face, but somehow I knew it was her. I started going to sleep much earlier to reduce the chances of being awake when something happened. Years passed, and eventually my parents stopped sending me to the farm. A part of me was relieved. My grandparents passed away when I was in college, just weeks apart. The funeral was incredibly depressing. not just because of their deaths, but because I had to interact with relatives I hadn't seen in years. One of them was Francisco. Despite being around the same age, we had never really bonded. It took less than a minute of conversation to realize we had nothing in common, except for our summers at the farm. So I asked him about it. I told him everything I had experienced, including my theory that it had been our grandma. I expected him to laugh or brush it off. Instead, with a complete blank expression, he said something I will never forget. "That's nothing. That thing used to touch me." He went on to describe things far worse than anything I had experienced. The same figure would stand at the foot of his bed every few nights, but it didn't just watch him. He said he could feel the mattress sink like it was sitting down. Then he'd feel fingers tracing his face. Sometimes it would grab his wrist and hold it. He kept his eyes shut and stayed completely still until it left. I asked him how he knew it wasn't one of our grandparents. He said it was obvious. The hands were rough and scratchy, nothing like theirs. I was horrified. I asked him why he never told anyone. He said he did. He told his mom multiple times, but she didn't believe him and even got angry when he brought it up. Eventually, he stopped talking about it and convinced himself that if he didn't move and didn't look, everything would be okay. That conversation confirmed everything I had experienced and made it so much worse. Francisco and I never talked about it again. We both just wanted to leave that shared nightmare buried in the past. But if it wasn't my grandma coming into my room at night, I don't like thinking about what it actually was. The way Francisco referred to it as a thing still haunts me. And honestly, I don't know which possibility is worse, that it wasn't human or that it was. When I was 9 years old, I lived with my parents in a narrow townhouse squeezed between two identical buildings. My bedroom was on the 3rd floor, and my window faced directly into the house behind ours. The buildings were so close that I could see straight into the room across from mine, maybe 20 feet away at most. For a long time, there was never anyone in that window, but I used to look into it out of curiosity. Then one day, there was someone there. A girl. She looked about my age, with dark hair pulled back into a ponytail. The most vivid thing I remember about her was that she wore a yellow sweater. She waved at me, and I waved back. Then she stepped out of view. After that, we waved to each other every day when I got home from school. She was always there at exactly 3:30, like she was waiting for me, and she always wore the same yellow sweater. We started playing games through the windows. She'd hold up drawings and I'd guess what they were. I'd show her my homework and she'd give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. On warm days, I opened my window and tried to talk to her, but she never opened hers. She'd just smile and point to her ear like she couldn't hear me through the glass. I assumed her parents were strict. Eventually, I asked my mom about her. She said the Murphys lived there, an older couple with no kids. When I told her about the girl, she said maybe they had a granddaughter visiting. That made me sad because it meant she might disappear one day. But she didn't. She was there almost every day, always at the same time, and we played our games for up to an hour before she walked away. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to tapping. I went to the window and saw her standing there. She'd never appeared at night before. She wasn't smiling. She pointed downward at something I couldn't see and pressed her hands together, begging. I didn't know what she wanted, and it scared me. So I crawled back into bed. The tapping continued for a few minutes, then stopped. She didn't appear for 3 days after that. I thought maybe I'd upset her. But on the 4th night, the tapping returned. This time she pressed both hands against the glass. Her mouth moved like she was saying something. Her breath fogged the window even though it was warm outside. It looked like she was mouthing the words, "Help me." Then she stepped back and I noticed a dark stain on her yellow sweater. I ran to my parents' room, almost crying. My dad checked the window, but the light was off and she was gone. They told me it was a nightmare. The next day, I saw Mrs. Murphy in her garden. When I asked her about the girl, her smile vanished. She asked how long I'd been seeing her. When I told her, she told me to go back inside. That night, my parents moved my bed and hung thick curtains over my window. My mom told me I couldn't play the waving game anymore because I was too old for imaginary friends. The girl never came back. Years later, my mom finally told me the truth. The previous owners had a daughter named Jenna. She was 11 years old when she was hit by a car in front of the house right after school. She was wearing a yellow sweater. I'm 34 now. I live in a house with no windows facing other buildings. That's not an accident. I still dream about her sometimes. She doesn't smile anymore.